Hello, welcome back to Virtua Plays. I'm so glad you could join me for this quick look, this playthrough, this kind of relaxed playthrough, Golden Axe the Duel, which is, I'm playing this on the Sega Saturn. It was also an arcade release, and this was one of Sega's fighting games that they brought to the Sega Saturn. So you may be familiar with the Golden Axe franchise. Certainly if you're anywhere near my age, most people my age grew up with Golden Axe on the Mega Drive, or if you're in America, the Genesis. Golden Axe 1 and Golden Axe 2. I think there was Golden Axe 3 as well, but what came to the arcades and the Sega Saturn was Golden Axe the Duel, which I think a lot of people missed, probably because of the platforms it was released on. But it was also, I get the feeling this was very outshone by the other fighting games that were available on the Saturn. Your Street Fighters, your Darkstalkers, your Virtua Fighters, your Mortal Kombats, your King of Fighters, etc, etc. Like, the Sega Saturn wasn't wanting for fighting games. So, unfortunately, I feel like Golden Axe the Duel got left behind. But let's play some and see if that's warranted. So I'm not dead familiar with this game, so that's why we're not doing a what is video, because I don't really know what it is. So let's just join in and play some. So we've got a good cast of characters. So I believe some of these characters, so Milan Flair and Gilius, you kind of recognise these three from Golden Axe, but they're not the same characters. I think they're like grandchildren. I'm definitely going to choose Gilius because I always played the dwarf in Golden Axe, and it looks like we're fighting whatever that guy's name is. What was his name in Golden Axe? The main dude. Oh man, I've got to Google it. He had a really stupid name. The Axe Battler. Axe Battler. That was his name. So this guy obviously isn't Axe Battler. So, I mean, as we can see, this is Sega's attempt to do a 2D fighting game. You know, they were creating Virtua Fighter by this point. I don't know if they'd released Fighting Vipers by this point, but they were very much like leading the charge on 3D fighters. And the Sega Saturn was, you know, at their whoa, you know, leading the charge in the home as the home console. Wow, that's amazing. But games like Street Fighter, games like King of Fighters, you know, the Capcom fighters and the SNK fighters, things like Marvel Superheroes, things like that were still massively popular. And what better franchise to exploit that love than Golden Axe? So things to note about this game are that, I mean, beyond the character roster, can you see the little imp at the bottom of the screen there dropping magic? You recognise him from the Golden Axe games. In the traditional Golden Axe games, they would drop magic for you, and then when your magic meter was full, or even when it wasn't full, when it reached certain thresholds, you could unleash magic. And on this, that takes the place of like a super combo meter. So, I mean, I've beaten, so I can't demonstrate. But when your magic meter in the bottom left or the bottom right is full, you can press all three punches together and you become like super powered. And I'm not entirely clear what that does. Maybe it makes you stronger, maybe it makes you take less damage. I'm not sure, but you start flashing and you've no chance now. I've figured out your bag of tricks. So yeah, it's like, it's not a super combo because it's not like one big special move. It's like a power up. So it's kind of weird how the computer player flicks around the characters like it's a human. Who's this? Duel. Loading times, as is traditional on the Saturn, really bad. So I'm going to try and fill up my magic meter this time. I like how Gilius's kick is like his little, when you press punch and kick together on the original Golden Axe games, he'd like swing around his axe. There's loads of little things that they've added in this to like for fans of the franchise to enjoy. I mean, I wouldn't even call them Easter eggs; they're just little callbacks to the old games. I don't know. I really like that. The game's quite good. Like I said, you know, this game was, like a lot of people missed it because of the other, you know, the bigger fighting games available on the Saturn. It does play well. And from what I understand, it's pretty close to the arcade version. You know, you hear the terms arcade perfect thrown around a lot, but I don't know whether that's true. But people do speak highly of the Saturn port. Let's get some of this magic. This guy is absolutely kicking my butt. In a minute. To excuse my performance slightly, and this is not an excuse, this is completely true, the SCART converter that I used to get my Saturn plugged into my computer, here we go, here's my magic, so I've got magic power now, which didn't help me much, I got beat. Yeah, my little SCART converter, it introduces lag for various reasons, but the bottom line is it introduces lag on my system. So in a fighting game, you can understand why that doesn't help. Right, let's not continue, and let's try another character, I think. Game over. There's not a lot in terms of modes for the game, I would say. I don't know, was it standard by this point to have other modes in fighting games? I'm not really sure, but this is the very, you know, this is the traditional, you've got a single player and you've got a versus. I'm not really sure when it started to become standard for fighting games to have like survival modes and time attack modes and stuff, but I guess like these arcade ports, I don't know, they have to put the work into add new modes. So we've got Death Adder, who's the big bad guy from Golden Axe. I don't recognise these other characters. Okay, let's play Death Adder for sure. Oh, I like how Gilius is like the classic colours this time. That's quite good. So yeah, I believe the lady from Golden Axe, can't remember her name, her granddaughter is the lady who's in this game, and I think Gilius is the same. He's the grandson of, was it Gillian? I can't remember these stupid names, but I mean he's the same character. So that's just lore. So that's it. Death Adder's got. Say for himself. Is he the M Bison of Golden Axe the Duel? And if he is, I'm struggling to see it. I'm well into his like dragon shield. Got a lot of time for that. I actually think the visual style of this game is really, really good. All the backgrounds and things. It doesn't share the same visual style as the old Golden Axe games. It's much more cartoony. You know, it's. Yeah, I mean they were going for the term realistic. Definitely isn't accurate, but yeah, this is brightly coloured and. Yeah, it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I actually really like it. I think it's really effective. And if I had played this game as a kid, when Golden Axe was a bit more relevant to my life, I think I would have gone mad for it. I can understand why it didn't set the Sega Saturn on fire, not literally. There were just, I mean, I've already said this in the video, but there were just so many strong fighting games. It was the system for fighting games, even the multi-platform fighting games. And you will have heard me say this again and again if you're watching my Street Fighter series. The Sega Saturn versions of so many of those 2D fighters were so superior to the PlayStation versions. So your Street Fighter Alpha 3, your Marvel Superheroes, your X-Men versus Street Fighter, things like that. They were so much more arcade accurate than the PlayStation versions were, that if you were a Saturn owner, I mean you were probably a Saturn owner because you were a massive fighting game fan, because it was the place to play them. And most of those certainly weren't available on the N64. So, I mean, if you owned a Saturn, you were, by this point, you were playing Virtua Fighter, and you were playing Fighting Vipers, and you were playing Fighters Megamix, and you were playing Street Fighter, and you were playing Marvel Superheroes, you were playing King of Fighters, you were playing Darkstalkers, like, the list kind of goes on. Maybe Golden Axe the Duel wasn't quite so exciting. Gilius again. Could have tried a bit harder with these loading screens, couldn't they?
Duel 1. Fight.
Okay, so I'm going to work out some moves before Gilius absolutely wrecks me. Is it Chun-Li? I'm trying the I don't even know what it's called, like 1,000 kicks. Oh, that is totally Vega. Look at that. I like finding the Street Fighter equivalents in other fighting games because they always exist. In this game, it's the main protagonist guy. He's just Ryu. Like every game's got a Ryu. He's got the Hadouken, the Fireball. He's got the Dragon Punch. He's got the Hurricane Kick. And they're all the inputs for them are exactly the same as Ryu. So he's this game's Ryu. And Milan Flair, she's got a bit of Vega about her. You know, you may look at her and think Cammy or Chun-Li. But no. She's got that. And then to go Super Vega, that. If she can climb up the wall at the back of the stage. So we've got our spell. Oh, maybe it speeds you up. You'll have to excuse me if you can hear lots of clicky buttons in this. I can't tell until I listen back to the audio, but my sound controllers are just the clickiest thing in the world. Just listen to this. That's not even me. That's I'm not even pressing any buttons then. That's just how rattly the controller is. But I do love it, apart from that. So yeah, overall, I think I'm pretty positive on this. I was looking up some like impressions and the kind of reception the game got at release, and it got quite like middling scores really. Lots of like 7 out of 10s and 3 out of 5s. I think people just criticising they didn't do enough to stand out from the crowd, probably. Which I can understand that. But in retrospect, coming back to this as a piece of like Sega history to a franchise that I know and love, I like it. I think it's good, and I can't believe I haven't played more of it before. So it's A-OK by me. Right, I'm just going to see who the next opponent is. If it's someone we haven't seen before, we'll take a quick look. Otherwise, I'm probably going to sign off. Come on, be someone new. Cannot lose, my people are depending on me. I'm depending on you to find a new opponent, otherwise I'm turning this recording off. Oh no, it's that dude again. Okay, so yeah, we're going to wrap up. But I hope you've enjoyed Golden Axe the Duel. Thank you for joining me to play some of it. I'm definitely going to play more of this. I think it's awesome. If you own a Sega Saturn, then you too could pick up a copy of Golden Axe the Duel. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then I think it would be a good idea, because then you can see all my new videos pop up in your little feed. And if you enjoyed this, please leave me a like to let me know that you enjoyed it. And tell me what you think of Golden Axe and which is your favourite Golden Axe in the comments. Alright, thank you, signing off, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye bye.